Hello and welcome to this episode of Digital Disruption. Today I'm joined by Travis Scholes, who's the Commercial Director at LMS. Now, LMS is a leading UK provider of conveyancing services, providing mortgage lenders, legal firms, brokers and home buyers with a wide range of services for over 25 years. Travis, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you again, Chris.
Yeah, good to see you too, mate. Well, look, I'll dive straight into this. The theme for today is innovation, and I wanted to kind of get a background as to kind of some of the stuff that you guys have been working on, specifically one of your latest innovations and releases. But just before we kind of get into the backdrop of that, LMS has been going through quite a transformation over the last few years. Do you want to give us a bit of a backdrop to that?
Yeah, happy to do so. So, 3 years ago, we started off on a journey. We were a very lender-focused business, and we could see so many changes happening in the industry that required digitization, automation, and a hell of a lot of innovation, to be fair, just to bring the whole industry together. The conveyancing industry is such a complex beast, and it's been lacking kind of the investment required over the last 20, 25 years. But when you're talking about an industry of 40 plus lenders, thousands of brokers, millions of customers, and then 4,500 law firms at the back end, all that needs to be into a single journey, needs to be digitized, needs to be brought forward. And there was no singular place and no singular journey for that to take place. So we had a chat internally about what LMS can do to influence the industry, really, and whether it's a disruptor or whatever you want to call us. But we had to change everything about our organization to be culturally different, to invest in agile technology, to really become a tech leader in the space, and really try and be a leader and a thought leader, as well as everything else going forward. It's been a very, very long journey, and we're by far complete. We've got so much more to achieve, but what we've achieved in the last 2 or 3 years, we're very, very proud of. But more importantly, I think the people that are in the process doing the job day in, day out are starting to see the value of what we've achieved. So we're very positive about it, and the investment of time, resources, and energy has certainly been worth it from our point of view.
Yeah, well, having been close to that journey with you, it's been like you say, it's been a long, but it's been equally an impressive one. The net result of which has been some great leaps forward, none more than probably your latest product drop. And I wanted to kind of touch on that a bit more because I think there's so many kind of learnings and I guess learnings and opportunities that people can, watching this and listening to this, will glean and gain sort of from the experiences that you've had, and specifically that product being Dart. Do you want to give us a bit of a backdrop to that and kind of
Yeah,
what
I'd
it
love
is?
to. Very
Because it's
exciting.
a very, very exciting period for this space with this product.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time for LMS, but in the industry as a whole. So Dart is our decisioning and automated remortgage technology. It's what Dart stands for. And the long and short of it, it gives us the ability to fully automate a remortgage. If a lender introduced remortgage, it's been 2 years in the making. We started working on this personally. I think it was February 20. I think we started working on it, to be fair, when we first had the idea of how we would go about it. But the way Dart is designed to work really is in collaboration with every other stakeholder in the process. So we've not tried to kind of go about it in a way that means a level of disruption for law firms and lenders and brokers. We try to work within their ecosystems, within their technology, but enhance it by using the product Dart. So if you can imagine a journey where data is collected at the first available point right up front, and from the data collection piece, we've got the ability to identify everything you'd possibly need to know about the case, the level of complexity, additional fees required, additional legal work, likely times to completion, and be able to provide that data to all stakeholders along the journey to a point where it can be used as data to fulfill automated processes and remove duplication from the process. And that's what we've created. It's in collaboration with all of our partners. It's not something LMS have done in isolation. And I think that's one of the most important things about Dart as a product, that the innovation is being driven by everyone working together to deliver this fully end-to-end process. Dart's the heart and soul of it. It provides the upfront information, it provides the decisioning, it provides the complex rule engine that allows everything else to progress. And along that journey, it provides real-time communication up and down the chain to ensure everyone's fully aware of the progress and what route the case is likely to take. And that's just phase one of Dart. That's what we've achieved to date. It's live, it's working. and the results have been phenomenal. To put that in perspective, the first live case we put through completed and was ready to complete within 4 working days.
So
And
this
we
is,
take
to be crystal clear for people watch this, this is a remortgage effectively
correct.
process, end to end, fully digitized.
Yeah, the process is taking between 4 and 5 weeks at the moment to go through the journey, and we managed to complete the first one in 4 working days. So from the point of instruction, so lender instruction coming through, we start our data collection journey. We collect data from external sources, commercial sources, data from the broker, from the lender, from HMLR, from the borrower themselves when we need to. All that information goes into a complex decisioning engine. And it's all very lender specific. So it mirrors the lender's legal instruction plus thousands of other rules. And from that information, within seconds, we can determine the complexity of the case and all those things I mentioned before. And from that point onwards, it goes through and we work with the law firm to deliver full end to end automation. So all of those major case milestones being completed, the customer, the borrower, and the lender being fully updated real time along the way, along the journey, to a point where that case is a big green tick at the end that says, we're done, your ERC is going to expire on this date. Your case will complete on the same date. We're good as gold. Crack on, and that's kind of where we've got to with it. It's a very very exciting piece of technology that I think the value for me in it is two things. One, the upfront data collection piece does give us the ability to inform all of these stakeholders at the earliest available chance about what case route is likely to take. And what's going to happen with the case next. It informs them of what they're going to need to do, what their obligations and responsibilities are, but also uses that data to start populating milestones and start populating the automation along that journey, and start populating the communication journey back and forward. It's nothing has been done like this in the industry before. It's definitely a UK first, and we're extremely excited about it. We're all quite tired. I think getting the first release gone and out of the way, it's been a bit of a labour of love, really, but the results have been instantaneous. And from what we can see in the first iteration, the first release of Darts, about 12.5%, about 1 in 8 cases can go through a fully automated end-to-end journey without the need for manual intervention, with a massive reduction in duplication of task and effort from everybody, to a point where a remortgage becomes as simple as a current account switch, and that's kind of what we're aiming for. It's not necessarily about speed. Speed is a byproduct of what Dart does. Dart for me is a communication tool. It's an automation tool that allows certainty on the transaction type. And all the research that we did, talking to borrowers, talking to brokers, talking to lenders, yes, speed was important. Speed's been one of those things that have been talked about in the industry and talked about in the press for quite some time. What we find the most important thing for those stakeholders is informing them as to when, what's likely to happen, what's required from them, and how long it's likely to take. And those periods of quiet, those periods of uncertainty is what causes phone calls and emails into the law firm, where it causes them to stop doing the work that they've been employed to do. And Dart solves all of those problems. It's a landmark development in our opinion, and it's been shared by our lenders and our law firms we've been working with. So yeah, very very exciting times for us.
Well, congratulations on it. It is a big achievement, and I think what it does for me in terms of other people being able to glean some inspiration, knowledge from this, and we'll go a bit deeper in a moment as to some of the challenges you face and how you've gone about this. But specifically, what it says to me is that this is truly and genuinely the difference between change and transformation. This is transformation at its best. That we're not building a better version of the past here. This is something that's new, and it's tackling a number of problems. Not least of which the outcome being a much better experience, a much better customer journey for the end user in this mortgage process. So, lots of stuff in there. But just turning to a few points that you made there, talking about the product and the outcome of that and what it actually does. You spoke there about collaboration and how you've had to work with other organisations on this 2-year journey to get to this point. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and the importance of collaboration?
Yeah, I think you say the word have to, and I appreciate just the language, but we wanted to. I think that's the most important thing that was really important to us. Um, so to talk about the industry more broadly for a second, I'll come back to Dart specifically. The industry has been flooded with new products and services of late. Last 12 months, we've seen an influx in ID AML providers and proof of funds and all those kind of companies coming into the conveyancing space and offering great services. But those great services aren't necessarily connected to the main process, or they require more development or more work to integrate into a CMS platform or into one of the search platforms that exist in the space. And as such, I think it's actually caused probably more disruption than support in some instances. So instead of us building something that again was independent to the process, something that people would have to adapt to and adopt new technology or do a hell of a lot of heavy lifting, we said, look, we've got law firms, they've got an ecosystem, they've got CMS that they use, they've got workflows they use and they trust, they've got third parties they already use and they trust. We've got lenders who've got a process, and the process is set with the lenders, and we've got brokers and borrowers who follow the same journey. How do we use the journey that already exists and then transform it into something brand new without them having to kind of change huge amounts of workflows, without them having to change APIs and the connectivity that already exists? People look at conveyancing and go, there's no digitization, there's no connectivity. There's plenty of it. It just doesn't all sort of join up to one end-to-end journey. And all we try to do is really be the plumbing that pulls all those different bits together. So working with the law firms, working with the lenders who have been fantastic supporters of this process has allowed us to move so much quicker, and the rate of adoption is so much faster because there's only minimal amount of changes required at their end. And that's been the key to Dart's success so far. But the industry is suffering from this kind of influx of new supply, this influx of digitization, without that collaboration piece being attached to it. Now, we're not the only ones doing that. There's other providers out there who are trying to collaborate multiple services into one platform. But all we're trying to do is being part of that. We're trying to work with the existing infrastructure and ecosystems rather than trying to make them rebuild it. But as a result, we're pushing on open doors. I mean, we're talking to our law firms and people on our panel going, look, we're going to work with you in your workflows, in your ecosystems, and all we're going to do is provide these bits that are missing, or enhance these bits, or actually provide this transformation of a journey that still uses your exact workflows, uses your same processes, but just slicker, faster, and better. And it's been a fantastic achievement by everyone involved, to be fair. And the initial law firms that we worked with are now reaping the benefits already. And it's only kind of phase one. I think we've got 17 phases planned of Dart so far. And although we never looked that far ahead, because being an agile business, we kind of know when the product to go, and we split it up into chunks of delivery. But ultimately, in phase one, the value and the returns already been seen by everybody. And that's because we worked with them to deliver it. It wasn't done in isolation.
The collaboration has clearly played a key part in it. As you said, you wanted to collaborate with these organisations. Tell us about the sort of start of this particular journey and the challenges that you've ultimately faced and overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the difficulty the whole industry is facing is the duplication effort required to get a case through from mortgage sourcing, whether it's from a broker or from direct, all the way through to completion. And some of the tasks that get duplicated, the first things first is duplication of ID, AML. Data collection happens multiple places throughout the journey. And the point the conveyancer starts the conveyancing journey, they still got all this data to recollect. It's not passed down the line. There's no single trusted source of data. But even if there was a single source of data, it's not being analyzed by anybody. It's just data that needs to be picked up and looked at by somebody, put in the right process, put in front of the right conveyancer, and that goes forward. What Dart's designed to do really is to remove the duplication of that process, collect all the data at the first available point, and then analyze it before any heavy lifting is done, any work's completed by the conveyancer. It goes to the right route, down the right person, to the right law firm, all because we're analyzing tons and tons of data at the point of instruction, or point of the data journey being complete. And that's happening within, as soon as the instruction comes in place, we start analyzing data. It's not happening down the path. It's not happening too late, which is, it has been traditionally happening that way. And because of those things, we've got to a point now where every single stakeholder's got something to gain by using Dart, without even worry about heavy lifting. The output that comes from our decisioning engine allows for very, very smart allocation, allows it not just to the law firm, but the individual conveyancer that sits within it, and allows the journey to start on the right path before it gets too late. So all that manual intervention has been taken away, and all has been replaced with automation. And it's a very complex decisioning engine, and it's lender specific, and each lender has their own set of rules and decision that makes to make sure it's fit for purpose. But that first phase just removes all that duplication, and the upfront data collection piece means that when the law firm's getting that case, they're fully informed what needs to happen. There's no more data collection to take place, and they can continue on with the conveyancing journey the way it should be.
And so there's obviously challenges that's you face there that's solving as part of the product being in development. But in terms of challenges that I guess you face from the start of this, and pulling the team together, getting an innovation set up. I know that because historically, traditionally, LMS hasn't had that necessarily that capability in house. It's something that you've developed and had to bring together. How have you approached that, and what challenges have you faced in terms of spinning up our research and development? Making starting those sort of cross-functional collaboration conversations, and then taking that ideation all the way through from solution to actually getting something into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And broadly talking about LMS a little bit differently, when we started looking at changing culturally who we were as an organization, we were the quintessential sort of blue suit, black tie, everyone's sitting in kind of offices and working away very busily. To moving into an agile organization and tech focused, I mean, everything about us needed to change before we could even consider a project like Dart. I mean, I'm sitting here in a jumper today. That's not, it's a representative of how culturally we changed as an organization. But, looking out to the floor behind me now, the guys working, where, more than half of our staff now are IT developers. We're a digital first, technology first business now that's aiming to improve the process for everybody. And that started off with a single idea and a conversation I believe you had with Nick. I think I remember listening to the article that you guys did together about what transformation looks like internally and culturally first. And we need to get our whole staff on board, and we had to get everyone on board in terms of what that meant for everyone's individual role, what that meant for LMS, what risks we were taking, and that started off with an initial and a very honest conversation with the SMT. Once we decided we're going to go down this route, then everything changed. The skill sets we had internally needed to change. Some people needed to be reskilled. We needed to bring in people externally to help us on that journey. It wasn't something LMS could do ourselves in the first point of call. But once we got the kind of the basic structure right, in terms of we had a way of delivering tech fast, and we weren't spending massive amounts of money by doing kind of huge monoliths of work. It was very agile in terms of short, sharp deliverables. We started looking at more complicated work, and that ideation process, as you mentioned before, became quite clear. We all of a sudden had a way of to sit down and going, what if we just did this or looked at this? I remember sitting in the corner in the room here in Cheshire going, if we just put a bit of resource on this and just checked out this bit, what would happen? And we worked like that for a long period of time in terms of let's just take an idea and see what happens. And those ideas that showed value, we then went into a more structured program in terms of the return on investment, what it looked like, how we're going to deliver it, how long it's going to take, what the value was going to be in the industry. We went and did kind of customer feedback sessions to ensure that the stuff that we thought were going to add value were actually going to make value. And we did all these things before we started doing any kind of heavy lifting, really. But we kind of sat down with the idea that we could have a small team just doing R&D, just playing with stuff. And the other thing about conveyancing at that particular point in time was there was so much low-hanging fruit. There's so many things you could pick up that had immediate value for our customer set. So the R&D bit was quite easy to begin with in terms of doesn't matter what we picked up, it was actually adding value, if that makes sense. But taking that in from ideation into the squads and having the squads working in a way they were comfortable with, and bringing in large amounts of developers and stuff, and feeding them into our culture, understanding conveyancing as a journey and what that meant and why they were building what they're building, not just doing the build. That stuff took time, and I think from an agile point of view, and this guy's working 2 week sprints here, I think our rate of completion of work has kind of doubled since we started. We kind of started tracking it over the last 2 years, purely down to the fact that we invested time in our people understanding why we were doing it and not just how. But it's been a very, very interesting journey, to be fair. And I think what we learned from it, what the pitfalls and the possibilities was, it's okay to fail. You're going to fail, do it quickly. And don't be disheartened by it. Every failure is a success when you look at it that way. And we had a few failures along the way, things that we spent time and effort on, even just small time bits of time and effort on that weren't right. We had to rebuild, rethink about, or customers didn't respond to. But that failure kind of taught us the avenues and what our customers wanted from us. And what we see today, we're delivering high quality, very, very fast tech out to the industry now in a way that's been consumed by thousands of people daily. So it's been a long journey, but it started off with a bit of failure and just a few guys in a corner just seeing what could be done with an idea, and it's been quite exciting build since then.
It's a very different way of working, but it's also a very different approach and a different mindset to approaching development and innovation. I mean, you said there, let's just see what we can do. And there's a few things that kind of stand out there that I think are kind of real big lessons for people. One is cadence. When you first kind of move into this new way of working, to this new way of thinking, to a new approach to developing innovative technologies and trialing something, when you change that way of working, you have to be all in. You have to invest in your teams
100%.
of people. You have to bring in some external help, typically to support that journey, but also to understand that after the first sprint, not everything isn't going to be perfect. Something that really stood out for me in your commentary there was in 2 years, you're very different in terms of pace for delivering things that come out. You're delivering twice as much from when you first went on this journey. And that's because those teams have matured, they've gelled, and the cadence has changed. And I've often found when I myself are in with organizations that executive teams can get almost quite frustrated because they're not seeing this sort of uh, magic bullet turn everything around within 4 weeks. It is a journey to go on, isn't it?
Well, it's scary more than frustration, I think, from my point of view, in terms of you kind of invest in a new way of working, and all of the all ideology and all of everything you think about and hear about working in an agile way makes a lot of sense. And then you look at the work required to go and deliver it, and you can start agile off very, very small as part of your organization. But to your point, you kind of need to be all in because it is a completely different way of working. And when you first start, you're going, geez, we've changed everything about us as an organization to make this work. Is this the pace we're going to go at? If so, that's kind of, we need to move faster. How do we go and do that? But the reality is, and that's the fear that comes along with it, I think, in terms of once you commit to anything all in, whether it be working agile or changing your kind of the face of your business to be more tech focused, or just change your diet, anything at home, like there's an element of fear that goes with it. What if it doesn't work? And that's where you just got to swallow hard and go, you know what, everything you hear about the theory about this way of working, all the big organizations in the work that are leading the way in digitization, automation, all kind of work this way. There's a way this works. And the other thing that we kind of learned, Chris, and is pure agile for me doesn't exist. LMS have our own version of agile, and as we've adapted it over the last 2 years to work for us. And somebody who's worked in a different agile business, or will come in here and going, well, that's not how we do things where I used to work. But that's the thing about agile; it can be adopted in a way that suits your organization's culture and its needs. And we started off, I think, trying to be very pure. And I think when we figured out quite quickly that there's a way of working for us that maybe not is pure agile, but it works for us. It allows us to move quicker, allows us to be as nimble as we want to be, focus on multiple priorities at once, grow and scale as quickly as you want to be, and make sure we're demanding to the needs of the industry. And I wouldn't call it pure agile, I'll call it a derivative of, but it's LMS agile as we would kind of refer to it as. And that works for us. But that's the fear that you need to overcome, because the cultural change are quite significant. But you look around the organization here at LMS, and I've been here a while now, and it's a fantastic, fun place to work because we're always building new things. Everyone's engaged in it. Everyone's got a voice. And it's quite an exciting place to be because you are kind of making market change and disruption, and transforming what's happening today into tomorrow. And it's quite exciting for me.
On the agile point, it's interesting because there are many organizations that I've seen and been in over the years to support where there's almost this purist view. We have to, this is what's in the textbook type thing. And what I always say, and I know with you guys, it's been very much the same, and that is that, look, you have to adopt it. It's not, let's not call it agile. It's kind of the LMS way of working. It's the company ABC way of working. You're just adopting
Yeah.
a new way of working. And I think for people watching and listening to this, this is really important to take away from this. If you're on this journey of change and transformation, ways of working are fundamentally one of the critical, key critical things that needs to change in order to transform, in order to sort of remain relevant, because it's a total new way of working. And in most organizations, these things need to be deconstructed and reconstructed. You guys have been through that journey yourselves. But as part of all of that, what you've got to do, and which is really important, is to acknowledge that things need to change, acknowledge and work out what ways of working are going to work for you and make them your own, because no one business is the same. So if we take financial services, very broad, there's lots of compliance, there's lots of regulation, there's lots of governance. In these environments, there are certain agile ways that aren't congruent with those sorts of environments, and so you've got to have uh, you know things in place to support and bring all that together. And I think the important thing to do is to adopt it to your world, and then evolve it as time goes on, and tweak and learn and adjust so that you can get the best out of it. But importantly, be continuously improving and evaluating as you go. And I think for
Absolutely.
me, really important message for people, because so many people get so what I call operating extremes. It's like we're all in on this way of working. Oh, that's not worked after a month or two, or we're going to be all in on this one, rather than just taking it incrementally and just making it your own.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And we've got Mike, our CTO, and Mike, our delivery lead, have had to kind of help the SMT be patient with that, understand that things aren't always going to move as quick as you want when you first begin, or we're going to tweak this and or remove that, or look at this skill set, or look at this way of working, and they are tweaks and all kind of stuff. But I suppose for us, the principles of what we want to achieve and why we want to achieve them didn't change. We wanted to be agile in terms of being able to focus on multiple priorities and deliver things fast, because the industry was changing at a rate. And we wanted to do it in a way that was technology first, digital first, automation first, in a collaborative way, in terms of we wanted to work with our stakeholders to deliver this, not in isolation, not to build products that were too difficult to consume and adopt. And we had this kind of 4 or 5 principles that we kind of stayed true to. And even though the ways of working kind of got tweaked on the way, those 4 or 5 principles never did. And it took us a while to get to those 4 or 5 things, but we were quite clear on that journey, in terms of, as long as we're doing these 3 or 4 things well, how the operation wants to set themselves up to deliver this will happen naturally, as long as you give them the kind of enough freedom to kind of express how they want to work, how they're going to best get along with each other. And one of the key principles of kind of agile is this kind of self-managing teams aspect of it, which scared the life out of me as an operational manager for 20 years of my life, going, what do you mean you're going to self-manage? But actually, the freedom that these guys kind of, guys and girls have got over the time, in terms of self-organizing, maybe more than self-managing is probably a better way to explain it. They found a way of working with the people around them that allowed them to be the best squad they can be, to deliver things the way that they were comfortable with. And that freedom to express themselves in terms of how they wanted to work has led us to where we are today. And we've got 6 squads here. You could argue there's subtle differences in every squad in terms of how they set themselves up, because the people within it. But they all stay true to the principles. They all still stay true to the main rules and objectives across LMS. But they do organize themselves in a way that works best for them. And I think it took us a long time for us to kind of swallow hard and give them the freedom that they needed, and give them that expression. But once we did that, that's when the cadence started to improve quite considerably. That's when we got quite a lot of sticky staff. We've got devs that have been here for years now, because they've got that way of working that they're comfortable with, and it works for them and it works for us. And there's a huge amount of trust that comes along with that. And I think anyone working with LMS, if you ask them about, do we trust them and do we allow them to get on with it, I would hope the answer is yes from all of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I know from obviously being close to the organisation that there is a lot of work that's gone into that, in terms of building psychological safety, and ensuring that people have got that trust and that safety net to operate in. Let us talk about that for a minute, because actually it plays a huge part in culture in terms of organisations. What are the things that you would recommend to people listening and watching about that? Because as I said in that opening statement, it's such a huge part to play, is the psychological safety and ensuring there's trust within teams. Yeah, what was your sort of tips be for organisations that are on this journey, that perhaps maybe don't have that cultural aspect quite right, or they've still got maybe quite a bit of churn in their delivery teams, and they're struggling?
Yeah, I think from us, I think from starting from the top in terms of the SMT, where we are as an organisation, the first and foremost, we all have to buy into this way of working. in terms of it was going to be a change for whether you sat in kind of our call centers upstairs in operations, or you sat downstairs in tech, where you were in service delivery or any of that kind of stuff. There was a change that was happening within the organization that was going to affect everybody. And the whole SMT had to kind of buy into this way of working and say, look, it's going to be different. It's going to be people working from home. It's going to be people working different ways and achieving different things. The rate of change is going to improve, where our risk profile probably needs to change. And this kind of whole different thinking about the problems we were trying to solve. Um, that started there, and then the communication down to all the different levels was massively important. But also encouraging people to be part of that change. I think that's the most important thing we found. There's nothing to be afraid of. If you're in operations, you want to come down and see what IT do, come downstairs and have a look. Come get involved in it. Be part of that decision making, kind of journey. Be part of how we build those new products. It was a very open plan, kind of, delivery model in terms of didn't matter who you were. If you want to be on the squad stand-ups, you want to come see what they're building. We did regular road shows. Communication was very good, and we removed the fear from the process in terms of, look, just trust us for this first little bit. Trust, and once we got our first product out there and say, look, here's what we managed to deliver in this period of time. Go and look at the value that's brought into everybody, and all of a sudden people go, oh right, that's how quickly did you get that out, and how much more of that can we have, and can we have this kind of bit as well, and then we did the right thing by focusing on some of our internal processes as well. So we weren't just building new products for our stakeholders. We started making sure we're giving back to our other elements of and departments within LMS. And all of a sudden, people saw this huge value in our delivery, and trust just went through the roof at that point. But it did start from a singular message and a singular way of working. Going, to your point, we are fully committed to this way of working. For LMS to remain relevant, for us to continue delivering the products and services that our customers expect, we have to move faster, we have to adapt quicker, and our rate of change needs to be in line with what the market's expecting. That's what's required of LMS. That's what our customers expect of us. We kind of need to be on the journey. We need to get on the bus. And cards on the table. There's probably a few people that struggle to adapt. It was a huge change. People have been here for a period of time, or even just started, and the ways of working were changing to a point where they just couldn't get their head around it. And we probably lost a couple of percentage of people along the way, and it's sad that happened, but that did. But ultimately, LMS had to be very singular focus on this. But I would say genuinely, within 6 to 12 months of us going on this journey, it became second nature. People were even talking about agile anymore. They're talking about, our rate of change and our rate of delivery was what's important. And people just kind of, it genuinely become part of, like, you couldn't remember what LMS were before. And that's when, you've been successful and it becomes part of your day. And all people, organizations, all parts of the organization should say, have a part to play in it. I think we're quite a flat organization as well, which quite helps in terms of hierarchy. The S&T, and there's a conversation and open dialogue across all levels within the organization, which does help with that trust element. We don't hide anything. We're quite open and clear about what we're trying to achieve. But for me, it is just generally having a single message and saying, look, we're going to commit to this. And once you commit to it, people do get on board because the value is really, really clear to see. And the best thing about Agile for me is you're always releasing value quite quickly, right? So you don't have to wait 6 months, 12 months to show somebody that the value that you've done and the way you've changed and why you've changed that way. That value is happening every couple of weeks. When people are seeing that kind of rate of change happening so quickly that, they can, all right, okay, this is what we can do now. Great. We've got these ideas. Let's go and get them delivered. But for me, that's the way you go about it. Have a very flat organization, communicate really well, and have a singular message, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Great stuff. Travis, just finally, what are the things from an innovation standpoint? I know, the theme was very much there talking about innovation and the things that you guys have achieved over the period of time that you have done. When you talk to other organizations who are perhaps maybe on that verge of thinking, right, well, we've organized ourselves in a different way, we're building product, actually we need to innovate, we need to kind of be at the forefront, thought lead. What would your advice be to them in terms of how to go about innovating, and perhaps maybe 2 or 3 key things to hone in on to make sure to help get that right?
Yeah, first things first for me is talk to your customer base, find out what they want, find out what they need. I think what we found, the places where we kind of made that assumption about what our customers wanted and needed and started building things that we thought were going to support them, probably wasn't exactly what they wanted. And we have to go back and change and adapt to that kind of thing. But we are now very customer led in terms of we'll talk to our customers very regularly and get feedback from them regularly about what they want us to do moving forward. That helps us make the right decision first and quickly. I think that's really, really important. The second thing about innovation is don't take the burden on yourself. It has to be a collaborative effort, as far as I'm concerned. If you're working in an industry like ours, where you've got multiple stakeholders all controlling or being part of the individual parts of the process, you can't just build in isolation. It's impossible. You'll build things that can't be easily adopted to, easily integrated with, and therefore you've got a great product that no one can touch and no one can use. Um, Work with your stakeholders, work with your competitors, be agnostic in that kind of delivery about it. If it is truly about transformation of a journey, very, very rare organizations can do that by themselves. I think you need to think a bit wider and be more open to working with other people and other organizations to deliver that. And the third thing is fail fast. I think for me, you're going into the journey. Don't be scared of failure. Go and give it a go. And if you fail quickly, recognize failure, you move on, pick yourself up, and you go again. We learned, through bumps and scrapes along the way about what works for us. And I'm not just talking about product delivery here. I'm talking about ways of working. If you go pure agile, you adopt to a certain type of way of working. If it's not working for you, it's okay to change it. Don't it's stay the course, stay true to your principles, stay true to what you want to deliver. But when certain things aren't working and you get ideas on ways you want to tweak it, go and tweak. It's okay. There's no for me. I go back. There's no pure agile in the way that we work. Anyway, we work to our ways of working based upon a methodology and a principle. I think that's mostly important for me.
Brilliant. Travis, it's been a pleasure as always. Thanks ever so much for joining us.
My pleasure, always. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.